That was the worst performance of the year, and it happened against the Ole Miss's biggest rival in Mississippi State. But as much as it hurts Ole Miss fans that all they want to do is beat Mississippi State, there is a silver lining from this game potentially, and that is Ole Miss is kind of already in the dance. We'll talk about it a little bit more. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ole Miss played like a team that knew on Wednesday night they made the NCAA tournament, and they looked like it. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and this is the instant overreaction, and we're going to talk about this blowout win. I realize it was a 10-point game. That game was a blowout. Mississippi State won shooting the ball, rebounding the ball. Ole Miss had 11 turnovers in that game, which is very uncharacteristic. At the end of the game, you looked out there, Robert Coward was on the field, on the court. Eduardo Klafke was on the court. Chris Beard was obviously not happy with the way this team performed. Period. This was the worst performance of the year for this team. And the LSU game, the tip in at the very end to win that game, it could have went sideways. It did not. Against South Carolina, holding off for the win, for their 8th conference win. Think about how huge those games are right now. If those games would have went the other direction and you would have lost the game this way against State, people would be melting down. And people are melting down on social media right now anyway. People are just mad because they lost to Mississippi State because you don't want to lose to Mississippi State. I get that. There's people upset about what happens. Whenever these two teams play, you want to be on the winning end of it. I get that. And in that respect, this was a terrible night for Ole Miss basketball. Getting beat the way they did on their home court, a sold-out arena, an electric atmosphere, all of that, getting handled like that would be problematic tonight. Seriously, if Ole Miss had not already secured their tournament berth. With that Vanderbilt game coming up in a week, how scary would that be if Ole Miss would have lost to LSU, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and going on the road against Vandy? That's kind of the silver lining tonight. I mean, we're going to do group therapy. We're going to be doing all of that. That is kind of the silver lining because Ole Miss absolutely got mauled on the boards again. They played out of control in the first half that stunted their own lead. They got up to 9 or 10-point lead early in the first half, and then Ole Miss just kind of got out of control to where they were throwing up wild shots in the lane and allowed Mississippi State to kind of get control of the game. And State went up at halftime by 7 points. Ole Miss, after that, really couldn't do anything to cut it down. I think they got it down to 4 once in the second half. But in the second half, they didn't shoot particularly well. We're going to go over the stats in a little bit, but they did not shoot particularly well in the second half. And Mississippi State kind of had their way in the game. It wasn't anything that State did. I think Ole Miss played complacent. The defense did not look as intense as it normally does. For the third straight games, Ole Miss did not force turnovers at the rate that they were before then. Whether they have to get that fixed or not, or whatever they have to do, they have not done that. They are not shooting 3-point shots very well at the moment. 14% in the second half tonight. Sean Padula, 3 of 10. Marshall Henderson level volume shooting from Padula. Jalen Murray was 2 for 2. The problem with Jalen Murray is he didn't shoot the ball. And when you look at the players that played a lot, Malik D only played for 17 minutes, and that was because he just wasn't effective. Padula played 32 minutes. Jalen Murray played 25. Matthew Morrell played 28. Dre Davis played 25. Dre Davis was not effective tonight. Dre Davis is one of my favorite players on the team. He was not effective at all. So I understand why people want to get upset. if you want to lash out at other people for stupid stuff, that's on you. That's a you problem. But I understand being upset about tonight, not being able to deal with it. That, like I said, that's a you problem. But when you look at how the Ole Miss basketball team played tonight, they did not play well. They played like a team that knew they qualified for the NCAA tournament on Wednesday night. And now it gets interesting. And I'm going to tell you why it's going to get interesting. Tim Thomas always talked about this a lot. And he played for Bob Weltlich at Ole Miss in the early 80s. Bob Weltlich coached under Bobby Knight. Chris Beard is a Bobby Knight disciple as well. And he talked about Bob Weltlich providing severe emotional events in the basketball players' lives. And what that basically means, and what Tim Thomas was joking about, is basically chewing out the player and the coach chewing out the team, and it being a very difficult situation for the players. Tonight, when you look at how the roster went tonight, Ole Miss basically played their whole bench because they had to. They could not find a combination that worked tonight. It just didn't. They just weren't locked in. You had Jamin Brakefield, who's been a rock for the majority of the season, having a severe technical foul level event in the second half that allowed Mississippi State a potential to score 6 points or more on a single trip down the floor. You can't do that. Chris Beard was obviously upset, and at that point, Jamin Brakefield sat. Severe emotional events, and you have a basketball team that has a week before they travel on the road to Vanderbilt. This feels like it's going to be a bye week that's going to be volatile. Let's say that. Feels like a volatile week is coming. Now, Matthew Morrell is going to get plenty of rest and hope that he's in good shape for the Vanderbilt game, because Vandy's a really good team. They might be 5-7 or whatever their record is at the moment after their loss to Tennessee today, but they're a pretty good team. And they have a win over Tennessee and a win over Kentucky already on their home court in Nashville. That's going to be a tough game. And that's going to be a game that Ole Miss has to really handle their business if they want to advance on. What has happened tonight, the real thing that has happened tonight, we'll talk about that in just a second right after the break and go over the box score as well. It was a rough night. This is group therapy. And remember, if you're commenting in the chat, please put where you're commenting from and your name, and we will have a little group therapy session here in about 5 minutes or so. So stand by for that. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, ready to eat and heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preference every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks that keeps you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. Example, I recently tried their Protein Plus meals. They were packed with flavor, and they kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. So eat smart with Factor and get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege, 50 off, and use code lockedoncollege, 50 off, all one word, to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's Locked On College, 50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege, 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Pretty good stuff. I even got my brother-in-law involved with Factor Meals, and he really, really likes it as well. All right, so let's look at the box score in this game and talk a little bit about what this means moving forward for Ole Miss. And spoiler alert, it doesn't mean a whole lot moving forward for Ole Miss other than the fact that you got swept by your rival. How you deal with that and what that means internally is probably what that means. It's not going to have any effect on the season as far as tournaments coming up at the end of the year. Ole Miss is still likely going to be at the 4, 5, or 6 seed line. They're still going to likely be wearing a white jersey whenever they play their first game in the NCAA tournament. So don't anybody sweat about that, but it is what it is. Ole Miss got rolled a little bit tonight against Mississippi State. Mississippi State ended up winning the game 81-71. Now, that score is a little bit of a misnomer because Mississippi State was up, I think, as high as 17 or 18 points in the second half of this game, and they kind of controlled it. Ole Miss started playing a little bit out of control at the end of the first half. Mississippi State got hold of it, and they didn't give it back. So credit to them for doing that. But it wasn't something that Mississippi State did. I think it was more along the fact that Ole Miss just wasn't playing at the intensity level that they can play at. I think that was the culprit of this ball game. Ole Miss shot 38% for the game, 38.3 in the first half, or 38.3 in the game, 37.5 in the second half. When you shoot this poorly, you're not going to win many games. In the second half, Ole Miss was 2 of 14 on three-pointers, 6 of 24 for the game, and they started out 4 of 7. So think about that as well. Starting out 4 of 7 and ending up 6 of 24, that means that they went ice cold after that. Ole Miss had 11 turnovers in this game. Think about the Kentucky game where they had like 1 turnover and how they've played over the course of the season. They had 11 in this game. Mississippi State had 13. Rebounds, Ole Miss got out-rebounded by 12. Mississippi State almost had 50 for the game, and there were periods of the game that Mississippi State just absolutely mauled Ole Miss on the boards. 10 rebound disadvantage Ole Miss can overcome. That's what they've done because normally their turnovers are okay. But tonight, they didn't play clean enough to overcome the rebounding disadvantage, and Ole Miss they had a rough go of it. Ole Miss had 22 fouls. State had 24 fouls. All of that was okay, I guess. You know what I mean? It just kind of is what it is. You look at Malik D had 9 points in 17 minutes. Sean Padula had 13 points in 32 minutes on 4 of 14 shooting, including 3 of 10 from the three-point line. Jalen Murray was 5 of 8 shooting and 2 of 2 from the line. The only thing that he did wrong in his 14 points, he led the team in this game, is he just didn't shoot enough. Matthew Morrell kind of no-showed a little bit tonight. He got injured a little bit in the first half. I'm curious if that is related to what happened, but I saw him limping in the first half. And Dre Davis didn't necessarily play with the fire that he did against, honestly, South Carolina and LSU and Kentucky. It's like the Auburn game. When Dre Davis does not play particularly well, Ole Miss ends up losing the basketball game. I'm telling you, he is the X factor on this team. Michael Brown-Jones, 6 points, 11 minutes. Jamin Brakefield, 10 points, 21 minutes. Devin Barnes, 7 points in 22 minutes. And in the end of this game, Robert Coward was playing on the floor. That kind of lets you know exactly where Chris Beard was as well. So looking at the NCAA tournament, I do think Ole Miss is plenty in the NCAA tournament. Only thing this thing means, and this game means, is that Ole Miss got swept by their rival and got beat by Mississippi State on their home court. How you react to that is going to be exactly what this game means, because I do think that they are going to practice pretty hard this week and get ready for Vanderbilt. And I think you're going to see a new team come out against Vanderbilt with a new sense of urgency. And if you can turn that around and get to 9 wins, because 9 wins is the 500 mark in this league, and that's an accomplishment in and of itself. With Tennessee, you can absolutely get that game, and then you have some big games against Auburn, Florida on the schedule, and then you have Oklahoma as well. If you can handle that, you will be in fairly good shape. I genuinely think that is the case. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to start our group therapy. Remember, if you comment in there, put your name on there and where you're commenting from. I am interested about that. We will have that group therapy coming up next. You know, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place your live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on fourth quarter comebacks, you can stay in the action. Even if you're looking at a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally, which didn't come tonight, or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, which didn't come tonight, I feel like I never missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, so when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. It's group therapy time for the next 15 minutes or so. So if you comment in the chat, please put your name in there and where you're commenting from. I am genuinely interested about that. I know people are going to be upset about that. And I know that everybody's going to have fun, but it is what it is. Kara Mellum says they were not ready to play. They absolutely were not. They were a team that looked like they made the tournament on Wednesday, and they played like they played the tournament on Wednesday. And Mississippi State was a desperate team that came in and played like it. And as you're going to see, they whipped Ole Miss pretty good. So we'll see it. Ben Bynum says, hate to say it, but the Rebs looked a little extra sloppy Joe sandwich from middle school cafeteria tonight. Hope this will be a wake-up call for the end of the year stretch from South Haven, Mississippi. Yeah, Ben, I think this will. Tim Thomas talks about whenever he played with Bob Weltlich, severe emotional events. I imagine that they're going to go through a severe emotional event over the course of this bye week. Randy Wilbank says, Ole Miss definitely crapped the bed tonight. They absolutely did. It was the worst performance of the year, bar none. Mark Walsh from St. Louis, Missouri. Ugly, lazy game. It's never good when I can't think of one player that played well. To get dominated at home on Saturday night in a sold-out gym is very disappointed. Play bowl more. They played everybody tonight. Chris Beard was pissed at his team tonight. He played everybody. And if that doesn't give you an idea of where his head's at going into, I don't know, they might be practicing right now in the indoor basketball facility. That is what I think could be happening with this basketball. They did not have the urgency that people have. Saints fan 04, yeah, that game was worse than the soybean burgers we used to eat in school. I remember those, and sometimes I miss those soybean burgers. It's kind of like the chicken sandwiches that they used to serve. I used to miss that a little bit as well. So we'll see. Brian Wesley says this team will be sent home after the first round of the tournament. You can't say that, Brian. You can't. It's all matchup dependent. It is. It just is. And I've said that pretty much for 4 weeks now. When Ole Miss was winning games and when Ole Miss gets beat, I've said the same thing. And that is this tournament run and any tournament run is going to be matchup dependent. This team is going to be fine. And once they get going, they're going to be all right. Juwan Campbell, Ole Miss plays better on the road than at home. It seems like that. It does seem like that. And if Ole Miss can get a win against Vanderbilt, that'll be a big, big moment potentially. But that Tennessee game at home and the Oklahoma game at home, they need to figure out a way to get those. They need to figure out a way to close those games because Ole Miss still has a chance at a pretty special season. This game doesn't change that. Tyler Leslie from Mooreville, Mississippi. Don't understand. We are a lot better team, and they played players they haven't all year. Just a bad loss. They played players they haven't all year because they were players that they normally play was not playing well. Listen, I'm dead serious about this. On Wednesday night, Ole Miss made the NCAA basketball tournament. Everybody says that. 100% locked for Ole Miss to get to the NCAA basketball tournament. That's what everybody has said. All of the players heard that. And what you saw was a team that came out and played a basketball game with no urgency, nothing to play for in their mind. And they played against a team that was desperate, and that desperate team played with that urgency, and they were able to take over the game. It was a horrible loss. It was a real loss. But they played the players they did because the other ones, they struggled. This team, Javon Campbell, this team just can't rebound. Looks like a play-in team. It won't be a play-in team. Like I said, they're going to be wearing a white jersey in the first round. They are, which means that they will have the lower seed in the first round. But they can't rebound. But they have to make up with not being able to rebound. The way they make up for it is they don't turn the ball over. Tonight, they turn the ball over. So that is what it is. Hot ET, I don't know that one. Lack of link is a continuing issue. Yeah, and it will be. They're not going to fix their rebounding problems. They have to overcome that by playing clean basketball. And when they don't play clean basketball, it makes the rebounding get that much worse. That's the reason tonight happened. They mixed not being able to play a clean game with not being able to rebound the basketball. And whenever that happens and you don't shoot well, it's going to be a problem. And it was a real problem. John Skinzel, Hotty Toddy from Chiba, Japan. Hotty Toddy, John. Thanks for watching. I'm assuming you're a military guy stationed out in Japan. I hope everything is safe and you're doing all right. Sterling Archer, SPS, belt to ass, little brother. Again, in basketball, Ole Miss is the little brother. They are. Look at the record. But it is what it is. Kyar Millam, is this Chris Beard's fault? No, it is absolutely not Chris Beard's fault. None whatsoever. It's not. Chris Beard does not deserve one negative criticism because he tried everything tonight. It wasn't a situation that he was off. He just couldn't find a combination that worked. And because there wasn't a combination that worked. Because this was a team that had the complacency of knowing they made the tournament. It just is what it is. Gerald Parker, absolutely piss poor performance. It was very bad. It's the worst of the year. Absolutely. Gerald Parker says our lack of urgency in these games that we should win is very alarming. Again, this is two good teams. There is no bad loss on Ole Miss's schedule anymore. Once Ole Miss got past LSU and South Carolina, there is no bad loss. It just isn't. So, like I said, it is going to come down to this, period. This game literally means nothing for where Ole Miss can go this season. Nothing. The only thing this means is how you take losing to a rival. If losing a game to Mississippi State ruins your day, yeah, you're going to have a bad weekend. Absolutely. But if you just take it as a bullet point that if Ole Miss over the next week can rest up because they need this bye week, they desperately need this bye week, and get into that game against Vanderbilt and pull off that W, all is good. Everything's fine. You want it to be a disaster. It's not a disaster. It just isn't. Other than the fact that you lost to your rival, this game means nothing for Ole Miss in the NCAA tournament. Because the NCAA tournament is going to be completely matchup based, and Ole Miss is going to be in it. Serious. Adam Alvis says he's from Birmingham, Alabama. Star says outcoached. No, they did not get outcoached. This was not outcoached. This was outperformed. This is out intensity. This happened on the floor, not scheme. This was basketball players going in and getting out of control in the lane and throwing up wild shots. This is point guards not being able to take care of the ball. This is throwing a pass to somebody that's not looking for it that ends up in a turnover. That's not coaching. It's not. This is in no way on Chris Beard. Now, Chris Beard's going to take blame because he should. But this isn't on Chris Beard. Team just didn't play well at all. Adam Alvis, this was bound to happen after playing down to LSU and South Carolina. This team could win 3 or 4 games in March, but it could also lose the first game. Not consistent. It's all going to be matchups, Album. It just is. It depends on who that first round is. Like, I could see a world to where Ole Miss is a 5 seed and they end up with McNeese State and McNeese beats Ole Miss as a 12 seed. I see that world. Absolutely. But I also see a world where Ole Miss wins 2 or 3 games in the NCAA tournament. So it is what it is. And then, don't get your hopes up, but it is. Will Ole Miss drop out of the top 25? I don't know. Like I said, Ole Miss has made it into the tournament. They're going to be fine. It's going to be all right. John Skinzel says, elementary school English teacher in Chiba, Japan here. I made sure to teach my student hotty toddy. Obviously, the most important phrase in English despite loss. It is great to watch your Rebels. Stars says, Bowl hasn't played much of anything. More of Klafke. Klafke had a bad game tonight. Klafke had a really bad game tonight. For whatever it is, tonight was the first game that he looked like a real freshman, if that makes sense. And we'll see exactly how that goes. Michael Speck's not practicing on the phone. Michael, stop it. That's ridiculous. Uncle Buck says, hotty toddy from Macon, South Carolina. I'm sad about our performance tonight, but I felt like we were automatically in the tournament and showed no effort. Yes, it's a team. They came in with the lack of the urgency because before this, and the stuff that they did to manage to come back against LSU and beat South Carolina, the urgency at the end of that game was the NCAA tournament and what it meant. That urgency wasn't here. They have to find a little bit more motivation. Proud of our baseball and softball girls. I hope they do all right. No, it's not coaching, Stars. It's not. Listen, I get it. Whenever a team loses a game in college football, you immediately point to the coach. I get it. When Lane Kiffin lost to Kentucky, everybody pointed at Lane Kiffin. I understand that. When Mike Bianco loses the game, everybody points to Mike Bianco. But tonight was not coaching. Tonight wasn't a little bit coaching. Tonight was lack of intensity. Tonight was poor turnovers, lack of focus. Tonight was it was ugly. It was not coaching. Even a little bit. If they would have made their open shots, which they had open shots all night long, the schemes that the coach put in was working. They didn't tell them and coach them to throw up wild layups and shots in the lane. There was no drive into the lane and kick out for wide open 3-point shots. The shots weren't falling from the outside, and that freaked out people. It just is. It is what it is. Doug Miller, tonight was a Tonight was a night where the players didn't execute the game plan, purely a focus issue. Yes, exactly. That is what tonight was. It's a situation to where you have time to get plenty better and you can do whatever you have to do. But do not be the data point to where you just say, okay, this is the data point. Let's stretch that out for infinity. We do not do that on this show. And anybody that does that, we laugh at them. This college scene goes just like this every game. Ole Miss could come out against Vanderbilt and start another 3 or 4 game winning streak and end up beating Tennessee and Florida on the court for their last wins. You can't say after watching this weekend that everything's going to happen. Michael Speck still thinks, I guess, Beard is going to. I don't know. What are you doing, Michael? Seriously. What are you doing? I understand that you comment on the show and all that, but nobody's talking about that. Nobody in Indiana is talking about that. The only person that is talking about that right now is you. Seriously. So it is what it is, but no, we're not going to play that game right now. We're not going to do what happened with Auburn and Kiffin and trying to sabotage the season. We're not going to do that, Michael. Sorry, bud. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Should be a whole lot of fun. I had a fun time in the chat. I know it's a group therapy session and we do all that. We're going to have our Monday show. You can catch our show on the Tegna family of TV stations. Listen, I've had podcasts on Sacramento, California, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, all of them picking up our stuff. They're going to pick up this one as well. That's great. And we're on an ABC 24 in Memphis. That's kind of our local home hub station. So check them out as well, and you'll be able to watch a replay of this podcast immediately after that, as soon as I get it uploaded to that. So it should be really cool. Like I said, the Ole Miss basketball team did not play well tonight. They didn't. Don't let anybody tell you they did, but I need you to understand that at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. I figure that Ole Miss is going to have a severe emotional event or two this week, and they'll be ready for the Vanderbilt Commodores. So We'll talk to you later. Take care. Hotty toddy, everybody. We'll see you later.